So, friends, we decided to do something a little bit different than to preach tonight and to give you the sermon. As Rabbi Sérgio said, you know, too many rabbis, too much discussions. Therefore, like you, no sermon tonight. You know why? I'm happy that someone is upset there. Because there are a few questions that I wanted that our dear guests will answer tonight. And we thought that it's also a knowledge and it's also an experience. Therefore, it's a sermon, right? So, and I have a feeling that if we all were at the same physical place right now, let's say somewhere on Copacabana Beach, I wouldn't say no, we would all have really great time, because I saw how everyone was smiling and, you know, kind of dancing when there was music. And isn't that the beauty? How can connect people that on the surface might have not too much things in common, but I'm sure that it's not true. And I wanted to ask first, Rabbi Sérgio, first of all, is that I know that you were one of the first rabbis in Brazil, correct? So maybe if you can tell us, how was your journey, how you became a rabbi?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much, really. It's really a pleasure to share this Kabalat Shabat with you. It's just amazing how we who live geographically so far away from each other are so close. So close not because of the internet. Doubtless, the internet connection makes possible for us from two different countries be in the same place at the same time. But I mean so close spiritually, because we share the same values, we are nourished by the same roots, we are concerned by the same common fate of Jewish people. Before I answer your question, let me go on a little bit. I would like to share two coincidences with you, two coincidences. Number one, you've mentioned. When we, in our synagogue in Brazil, announced the joint service with Beit Luria, led by Rabina Julia Margolis, I have heard from different people the following observation. Oh, we did not know that you have a relative who is also a rabbi. Of course, I notice how similar is our surnames. I smiled and kindly said, aren't we one big family? Sometimes, as Rabbi Joe Oswald taught me, a dysfunctional family, but always a family. And it means we say, Hineni, here I am for you. So again, we are far away from each other, but I feel that each one of you, regardless of your last name, is a member of my family. And I'm positive that you feel the same. The second coincidence, the synagogue's name. Our synagogue in Rio de Janeiro is called ARI, A-R-I. A-R-I stands for Association Religious Israelite. In English, Israelite Religious Association. Nevertheless, ARI is also how the great mystical Rabbi Luria was known, is known. I'm sure that both Ari and Beit Luria do not save any effort to fulfill one of Rabbi Luria's teaching, Letaken, rectification of life's broken vessels. And why I wanted to be a rabbi? Don't know what? I ask myself almost every day. When I was preparing for my bar mitzvah, I was studying hard, And I was blessed to be a bar mitzvah boy in the synagogue now I serve as a rabbi. And at the time, the rabbi only could talk to me for 15 minutes. I said, I was so upset, really so upset by the Torah portion. I spent 1 year, and believe my Torah portion was Tazria Mitzorah. I did not understand anything about the meaning of Tazria Mitzorah. And I went to ask the rabbi, but he was not available. Only 15 minutes. I was so upset. Then what I did what most of members of a synagogue do, complain about the rabbi. That's what we do often. We complain about the rabbi. And then after the bar mitzvah, the rabbi welcomed me and spent hours studying with me. And then I was invited to discover the meaning of Jewish roots, Mishnah, and he invited me to lead service for old age people. We are in a synagogue. We help a home for old age people, Jewish home old age people. So when I was like 17, 18 years old, I had to decide what I want to study, what college I will study. I decided, okay, I want to study something that will help me later on to be a rabbi. So I studied psychology, and then I applied for HOC. But really, the main question is still today, why I wanted to be a rabbi and why I want to continue to be a rabbi, because we have many challenges, daily challenges. And I tell myself, if one day I will be unable to answer this question, I will no longer be a good rabbi for me, for myself. But finally, and honestly speaking, each day or each week, I have a different answer. My answer, like 25 years ago or 30 years ago when I applied for HOC, is completely different from the answer that I have right now. And I do not know what kind of answer I will give to you and to myself why I wanted to be a rabbi. But as long as I ask myself why I do want to be a rabbi, I believe I will be able to serve Jewish people. That's it.
I think you gave a really beautiful answer, Rabbi. And you know, one of my friends once told me that, you know, when you don't have this passion, because I always nervous before the service, and I might know everything and I might read the text 50 million times, but I'm really nervous. And once he told me that, you know, when you will not be nervous, when you will not have those butterflies, and when you will not have this feeling of excitement to see your congregants, this is when you need to retire, because then it's not the real thing. And I agree with you that the answer, I presume that I would give now if I would be going to apply for a rabbinical school would be very different than what I gave, my God, almost also 20 years ago. So so I appreciate that, and I'm happy that I'm not the only one who's, you know, asking myself and dealing with these questions on a daily basis. Thank you. And can you just, because as you said, we are so far away physically, but also we are so close. And there is a great Jewish community in Brazil, and both communities are so similar. Can you just tell us in few words, you know, I mean, I have time until 12 o'clock at night. I'm not sure about other people. Just briefly, if you can tell us a little bit about Ari and about the Jewish community.
Okay. Jewish community here in I guess 25,000 Jews live in Rio de Janeiro, more or less 25,000. over 100,000 in Brazil. Ari is the second largest synagogue in Brazil. It's the largest in Rio. It belongs to the Reform movement since its foundation, 1942. Our founding rabbi was rescued by the Reform movement from Germany back in the 30s and 40s. Yeah, he was rescued from Germany, and then he spent sometimes in London. At the time, London was the headquarters of the International Reform movement, and then he was brought to Brazil. In my opinion, he was very wise for many reasons, but one of the reasons I'm saying that he was wise, and the founding rabbi, but the founding members, because they said to themselves, we are a German synagogue, okay, the first generation of German Jews in Brazil. We are Reform, however, we have to accommodate ourselves to other German Jews who at the time were not so Reformed, maybe conservative, maybe modern Orthodox. Okay, and they said to themselves, according to my reading of Ari's history, that it works out well for the first generation, maybe for the second generation, but the third generation already born in Brazil would need a different approach. Then we have chosen to be really a Reform synagogue. Not only belong to the Reform movement, but to be ideologically and philosophically Reformed. However, our approach to the Reform Judaism is different from maybe a North American's Reform approach, but that's the beauty of Reform Judaism, okay? I invite you to join our service, Brazilian time, 7 p.m., your time, midnight, whatever. Yeah, whatever. If
I will be there.
You will be there. You will see that we are a little different liturgically from you, but that's the beauty of Reform Judaism, okay? There is no right and wrong. The right is you do with kavanah, with good intention. That's the right thing. You try to bring your message, our Jewish message, to our people. That's the right path. Okay. We are facing a hard time. You pray for Israel, for the state Israel, what's going on in the Middle East. We are very Zionist synagogue. Very Zionist. We do have a Zionist youth movement, so we are right now very concerned with what's going on there. But when I say Zionist, I'm not saying left-wing Zionist, right-wing Zionist. I'm saying Zionist, and each one will decide what kind of Zionist, politically speaking, he or she is. Okay, that's a little bit. We have more than 800 families associated to the synagogue, and okay, and try to do our best to keep our message alive.
Thank you. So years ago, I don't remember, I think I was just after my army service, I went to travel in Brazil. And as a good Jewish girl, I was not rabbi. Can you believe this has also happened? I was just, daughter of a rabbi. We had conversation yesterday. How is it to be a child of a clergy? So, as a good child of a clergy, I went to your synagogue, and I have to say, I don't think ever in my life, this is what I remembered, is that everybody, you could see how everybody were excited to go to the synagogue. And coming from Israel, and again, please take it as a compliment, where people go to synagogue, you know, in flip-flops and shorts and t-shirts. I saw, you know, people dressed so beautifully and arriving and you know, I think I was like with backpack, you know, and climbing the mountain or something, or, you know, traveling. And it was just, I remember how it was really, you see, it's not always about liturgy. It's those moments that can have a very big impact on you. And then I was never searched and asked so many questions by security as in your synagogue. But again, it was 20 years ago. So, you know, I presume things changed. And the beauty was, and Rabbi, you mentioned when we were talking a few days ago, is that the service was in Hebrew. And it was such a beautiful, again, my Portuguese, you know, is not really good, except obrigado and caipirinha. I mean, those are the most important things I presume you need to know in Brazil, but still, and I remember, and it goes exactly what you said. We might be so far away in physical distance, but I will never forget how warm the congregation was and how great it was for me, thinking that the service will be in Portuguese, to come and to see service in Hebrew. And I felt at home and familiar melodies, and it was just absolutely great. So thank you. And student Rabbi Andrea Kulikovsky, and I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, when you sent me a message that you applied for the rabbinical school, I cried and I cried and I cried from happiness and joy, because how many walks and conversations we had together, and I really tried to show you why not to be a rabbi, and I really tried to, you know, protect you from this. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about, you know, the role of women rabbis in Brazil?
Oh, yes, I remember with so much love our walks in Jerusalem, and I miss them so much. And it was during Connections, so it was really an amazing time. I've thought, for the first time that I thought about becoming a rabbi, it was more than 20 years ago. There were no women rabbis in Brazil. And I have never met a woman rabbi. I knew that there were in the world, but in Brazil there wasn't, and it wasn't the internet time. So I knew that there was, but it was really far away for us. And then years passed, I got married, I had 3 beautiful children. And then when I went to Connections, my school was began. They said that they were going to begin a rabbinical school in Latin America, and that it would be online. And I said, wow. And there was this person that once asked me if I wanted to become a rabbi, and I said, no, who, me? And then I said, you know what? It's time. And when I think back, I think that the rabbi that I will become now is a better rabbi than the one that I would have been if I went directly from law school to rabbinical school. I've worked, I had my own business, I changed careers also. So I was a lawyer, then I became a pastry chef, and then maybe I just like to study, but but that's my path. And so when I began studying, it was like, you know, when you have this little flame inside you, and that is almost unnoticeable, and then someone blows the flame and it becomes a big fire. So from the day that I began my rabbinical school, I was immersed in studying, and then I began I began to work for the reform movement in Latin America, and now I'm really, really, really proud and happy to be working for Adi. That is my new Jewish home, and it is the biggest reform synagogue, because the other one that is big is it is not only reform, but it's reform and conservative, and that is really reform, so, and really Zionist. So I'm really happy to be here and to be opening the path for other women to become rabbis, because someone has to open. And now we have, working in Brazil today, we have two female rabbis, Rabbi Tati Chagas, that worked in South Africa, who is beginning her work at CP today. There is another one who is a friend of mine in a conservative shul, and I work as an assistant rabbi in Adi. So we are 3 women. It's not much,
but it's something. It's definitely something.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And you know, that exactly as Rabbi Sérgio said, is that you not only have Ari, you also have us, Beit Luria. So, you know, anytime when you will have an idea that you want to change career and countries, you are more than welcome. Thank you. Thank you. And again, I'm sure that we could have spent more hours, and maybe we will do, I don't know, maybe we can do, I don't know, a day, Sunday afternoon, something with more talking and knowing each other. But let's just go back to our service, as we need to conclude, and we are on page